I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and you know what? Some people just need a physical QWERTY keyboard. For those people, the T-Mobile myTouch Q is a new device, a new Android device at that, coming to T-Mobile, available now for $49.99 after a $50 mail-in rebate. Now, it brings a physical QWERTY keyboard, but specs-wise, it's not quite up to par as some of the other high-end devices, or even some of those other devices on carriers like AT&T and Verizon that are selling for $99 or between $49 and $99 as well. Is it worth the buy? Is the keyboard that great? We're going to find out in the full review, but first, some love to Best Buy Mobile for hooking us up with phones like the Q for use in our One Paw Bandit giveaway game. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working. They'll help you set up your email, your web, your contacts. So when you walk out the door with your myTouch Q, you can start typing. You'll be good to go at Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. Is this worth it, or should you spring and get the 1S, maybe the Amaze 4G or the Galaxy S3 on the nation's fourth largest wireless carrier? Let's find out in the full review of the myTouch Q, which starts right now. Unlike other Android smartphones that are coming out of the market right now, this is one of the few that has a full QWERTY keyboard. As you can see here, this is the T-Mobile myTouch Q. It's made by Huawei, and it's interesting how kind of T-Mobile's taken the myTouch line, because we saw HTC kind of start out with the myTouch line, then it moved over to LG with the myTouch and the myTouch Q. Now it's on to Huawei making the device, and it's a good-looking device, don't get me wrong, but it seems like they're kind of struggling to find a brand identity when it comes to the myTouch line, because we've seen them go from high-end devices that are very desirable to these devices which are more budget-minded, which are more mid-range to kind of low high-end Android smartphones. So it's certainly interesting to watch the line of the way that the devices have kind of progressed out over the years. But like I said, the T-Mobile myTouch Q available in stores as of today, August 8th, for $49.99. So this one joins the myTouch. There are two, the myTouch and the myTouch Q. They're both very similar in terms of design. The exception here is the Q adds a physical QWERTY keyboard. Otherwise, if you look at them head on, they look almost identical. They've got kind of the same chrome look and feel here on the back. They've got the same 5-megapixel camera with 720p HD video recording. They also have the same drop capabilities. So if you drop it from a small distance, it's probably going to be okay. I just was kind of ragging on myself there because I dropped it. So myTouch Q, to give you a rundown of the specs here, 1.4 gigahertz single-core Snapdragon S2 processor. So this thing doesn't in any way compare to the Galaxy S3, the Amaze 4G, the 1S, or some of the other high-end Android smartphones on T-Mobile. It's intended for a very different demographic. This is intended for a first-time smartphone buyer, somebody that's coming in, doesn't want to spend $200 on a device. This is for somebody that wants to come in, spend $50, and you can see here with the keyboard, you can get a full QWERTY experience for $50. So it's ironic because this one's $50 and then the other one is $50 as well. 4-inch WVGA display here, 800 by 480 pixels, and this one is a little bit bigger. It's 6.5 ounces, and it comes in with 0.56 in terms of a width, or in terms of a thickness rather. So 0.56 inches thick, 6.5 ounces on the side. On the right side, you got your camera button, your 3.5mm headphone jack, your power button, and on the left side, your volume rocker, your micro USB charging port, and of course your camera on the back with the myTouch logo. Down here, menu, home, back, and then Genius buttons, capacitive buttons, and a 4-inch display means, for a lot of people, this might be a little bit too small on the display side, unless you're coming from something like an iPhone or maybe one of the older myTouch devices with a 3.7-inch display. Otherwise, you might have some trouble getting used to this if you're coming from a 4.3-inch display or maybe a 4.5-inch display or even something a little bit bigger. 4-row QWERTY keyboard with a dedicated row, or excuse me, no dedicated row for numbers, but you do have a dedicated row for your D-pad, for your spacebar, and for commonly used symbols like commas, periods, and more. It's running Android 2.3.6 with a custom user interface. I don't know necessarily how much influence Huawei had on this interface or how much it's T-Mobile's influence, because if you look at this, it looks very similar to some older myTouch stuff we've seen on older devices on T-Mobile. So I think T-Mobile's kind of going, my guess here would be that they're going for kind of a standardized look and feel to their myTouch devices, and they kind of contracted Huawei to give a similar look and feel. You can still see some differences though. Take a look at the notifications bar. Again, Android 2.3.6 here. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and auto-rotate shortcuts up top. So much like Samsung, you've got some shortcuts here, and then you've got your network ID and your notifications. Now, it's always odd going from Android 4.0 or even 4.1 back down to Android 2.3. So forgive me if I try to swipe the menu bar or the notifications bar rather while the device is turned off. For example, all those little things like that. You get used to Android 4.0 or 4.1, what can I say? And it's kind of hard to go back. So here's your lock screen. You can press and access a couple of different things directly to messages, phone calls, camera, or swipe down to unlock the actual device. So you can see here some downloaded applications that I put on it in the time that I've been working with it. I can search applications through the menu. I've got my recent applications that I've used, and then I've got my applications down here. And you get a lot of T-Mobile stuff out of the gate. 411 and more, access T-Mobile. You get, and of course you'll see customized icons here as well. Game Base, you get Google Plus integration here, Mobile Life Organizer, Monopoly Clock, Netflix, you've got T-Mobile Name ID, T-Mobile TV, visual voicemail through T-Mobile Wild Tangent, Words with Friends for free. So quite a bit pre-installed, Web2Go as well. So quite a bit pre-installed, along with some pretty decent customization here. You've got 5 home screens, as you can see. Swipe through those, and you can't pinch. I tried doing this in the unboxing. You can't pinch, but you're going to see a couple of different widgets here, like this one, that's unique to this device. Then down here you got some shortcuts. You can change and move these around as you see fit. You got options for 3 shortcuts down here, and then you've got a static home button, or a static menu button rather, and a static phone button. So a couple of different T-Mobile things. Unfortunately, those can't be uninstalled, but let's jump right in and take a look at messaging here. A 4-inch display, so not only do you have the physical QWERTY keyboard, but you can also take advantage of the on-screen keyboard, and there are a couple of different options. This is a test contact. This is one of my demo phone numbers that I have on the Motorola Atrix HD. So I was testing this earlier, just saying, hello there, how are you, using the keyboard. It's a 4-row QWERTY keyboard with island keys, so you'd think theoretically it'd be pretty easy to type on it. For the most part, it's not too bad. The Quick Brown Fox is ready. I know what he's ready for. He's ready for the rain to go away. So not too bad to type on. I've definitely seen better options on the market. The Droid 3 and the Droid 4 in terms of keyboard blow this device out of the water on competitor Verizon Wireless. But that said, given the fact this is $50, given the fact that it's marketing to a particular demographic, somebody that's perhaps new to smartphones, coming from a BlackBerry, maybe wants to dive into the Android world, but doesn't want to spend $200 on a device they know they're not going to like, or they think they're not going to like, this could be a great device for them. Then you have, again, your enter buttons, your delete buttons over here on the side, but relatively easy to type on the keyboard. And then when you want on-screen support, you have portrait and landscape mode there. 4-inch display should be pretty decent for most people, and you have swipe as an option. As you can see here, how there are you doing? Not my best work by any means. I'm not a huge swipe fan, but you do have, and because this is Gingerbread, notice I can go to the input method there through the menu, and then I can go to the Android keyboard, again, the stock Gingerbread keyboard. You can download additional alternatives from Google Play. There's some great keyboards on the market. SwiftKey, there's a Jelly Bean keyboard, an ice cream sandwich keyboard, and more. So you get a lot of different choices out of the box. And let's take a look at the browser quickly here. We'll go to phonedog.com. This thing is a T-Mobile HSPA Plus device, so it does support T-Mobile's 4G capabilities on this device, bands 1, 2, 4, and 5, which is nice. So you do get that HSPA Plus capabilities. And of course, it's a world phone as well, so you can take it overseas and get some support there also, though T-Mobile's fees vary, so be sure to check that out prior to leaving. So you can see pinch to zoom relatively responsive, and again, you know, when comparing this to a device like the Galaxy S3 or the the 1X, the 1S, they're much faster devices. That said, not bad for an entry-level smartphone with a decent physical QWERTY keyboard. That said, you know, they've kind of gotten competitive with the price points of these devices. I mean, you look at other devices on competing carriers, the Atrix HD, $100, the 1X just dropped $100 on AT&T, and then of course the Lumia 900 on AT&T dropped down to $49.99. So you see these devices, you're like, hey, I could go to T-Mobile and get this brand new for $50, or I could go to T-Mobile or go to AT&T rather, get the Lumia 900 for $50, or I could go get the 1X for $99 or the Atrix HD for $99. Much better value propositions on AT&T, at least with those smartphones. Pricing plans aside, than it is with T-Mobile. So it's going to be an evaluation for you of what's more important. If you're looking to save money on the plan, you're looking for that kind of longevity, you want to save money over 2 years, T-Mobile is most likely going to be the better option for you. That said, if you're all about devices, you want a great device, and you want to spend maybe just a little bit more money, you don't want to go all the way to $200, AT&T is definitely worth looking at. And then not to say, Verizon's got some great options as well with the Galaxy Nexus, which has just been dropped to free or very cheap on most of their resellers. And then they've got some great options around the $99 price point as well with dual-core processors. So something to keep in mind. This one's just not priced as well as I'd like it to be. I'd like to see this around $19.99 or $29.99, if anything, maybe even free on contract. So something to keep in mind. 1,500 milliamp hour battery in the back of this device. You've got a 5 megapixel camera as well. Let's do some quick jumping over here. I want to show you what the phone icons look like here, the phone menu rather. So you can see the dial pad here. You've got your call log, your contacts, and a very standard look and feel over here with pretty minor customizations. You've got your call log so you can see when you called this person. You've got your details, and you'll notice it's got some nifty little transition effects there, along with typical Android stuff. Favoriting, you can save it or do a text message, you can do a phone call, you can add a picture, we can edit this contact if we want to, and more. So again, kind of a stock Android look and feel here, but you notice those customizations that are there as part of as Huawei's customizations or as part of the myTouch customizations. And last but not least, in part one, let's take a quick look at the Genius button, which you can access by going down here as well. Send text to check balance. And let's see if it works. I was kind of talking when it started up, so it may not work. Let's load up Genius here. Let's try that one more time. Send text to check balance. Bam, so relatively easy there, and then you got that nice Genius option. So, you know, it tends to rival, at least, you look at Android 4.1, Jelly Bean with Google Now. Not to say this rivals Google Now. I think Google Now is a little bit more advanced in quite a few ways. That said, if you're like, I don't want to spend that kind of money on a device, I don't want to go with AT&T, perhaps, you know, I want to go into a T-Mobile store and get a subsidized device, this definitely provides a nice level of support on the Genius front. So you can access the Genius bar, or the Genius button, rather. I can't believe I just said Genius bar in video. Been watching the Apple versus Samsung lawsuit stuff and kind of taking notes on that and keeping track, and that's got my mind on Apple and Samsung. So let's go to Genius here and take a look. Send text to check balance. Hi, how are you? And of course you can search the web and navigate to as well. So it's obviously far away from my voice, but you get the idea of how that works. A nice alternative to the things out there like Siri and Google Now and S Voice and more on competing devices.